Welcome to another episode of Carolina Commercial Real Estate Connection. Today we have Heather Young. Heather is from Texas. She is a serial entrepreneur, working in real estate and the health industry as well. Heather, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Heather, we'll dive into all aspects of your business. I want to start on real estate and kind of get into there. One thing I find extremely interesting about you is you are one of few women that seems to be drawn to the commercial side of the real estate. We talk a lot of men in this industry, and to find a woman that has a strong interest in commercial real estate more than residential doesn't happen every day. So thank you for coming on today. And could you tell me a little bit about your real estate journey?
Yeah, totally. I started in real estate just kind of doing whatever to get in the space. I didn't have good credit. I didn't have cash. So I found myself doing Airbnb arbitrage where I was getting Airbnbs leased. I was leasing from the homeowner and then putting it back on Airbnb. I was doing that. I had a little portfolio of 7 Airbnbs at one point, and then I was wholesaling. And I started wholesaling like fix and flips for investors, and then I realized like the profits for commercial property, like warehouses and car washes that were sitting either vacant or just like distressed, had delinquent taxes. There was actually a bigger profit and a lot more opportunity with that. So that's really where my business started taking off, was when we started wholesaling commercial property and finding deals for investors. So that's kind of like how I got started and started making some money. And but it was still very I was always tethered to one location. And it was hard for me to really scale that model with always having to have boots on the ground to analyze properties, to do some of that market research for me. So I then got into land, and specifically land investing. And with that kind of put me into a whole different world of finding land in rural areas and finding bigger parcels that we can subdivide. We can put a site plan together, just add forced appreciation with those entitlements. And then we, would sell it either to the end buyer, being your, typical retail consumer, but also builders, developers. And we still do a lot of lead generation, and we can reverse engineer our marketing for investors and find their specific product and find it at a good deal as well.
A lot to dive in on that, Heather. That's awesome. So first question I would ask you, one thing, when you're saying that, okay, when we were wholesaling, I said, okay, there's more money in commercial. A lot of people would be very hesitant to jump into that lack of understanding of commercial properties. They're a lot more confusing. Everyone lives in a home, so everyone understands homes, right? Not everyone understands a car wash or, warehouse property. Those scare a lot of people. What was it about those that didn't scare you, or did you have experience somehow understanding of commercial property?
I had no experience. Yeah. And I think that what made it a little less intimidating was the fact that they were like abandoned, or like they were just in distressed. So like the sellers were just kind of like, man, take this property, like it's about to get condemned, so for me it was just like it felt like the same. I was going through the same steps as I would with commercial property, like I'm sorry, with single family.
Mm-hmm.
And since there wasn't like occupancy and having to figure out P&Ls on all of the properties, it was just basically figuring out what's the value of the land, because whatever was on top of it wasn't really, and so I'd use just comps and tools for commercial land. And
Mhm.
that's kind of the play that we were running, was mainly just finding the value in the land.
Okay. That's awesome. And how long were you doing that? How long ago did you start? That was the beginning for you, right? How
Yes,
long ago was that?
that was 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Okay. And we spoke a little bit before we got going here. She's 30, so that was when you were 25. And so that's fantastic to be at 25 doing that. So prior to doing that, what were you doing? What sparked you into real estate? Were you doing something with real estate?
Before that, I mean, I had quite a rough start growing up and got in a lot of trouble. Was trying to find my way. I didn't have like any support from the family. So I was getting into all kinds of things. But yeah, selling cars, selling motorcycles. I knocked on people's doors. I remember at one point, which was, it was crazy to think that was really what uh built, like, how that,
Built your
like,
character,
the
basically.
character, yeah, and you're like, you build this resilience, and
Mhm.
you just don't have fear of rejection when people slamming doors in your face and like literally telling you to get off your front porch. When you go and you do that and then you start cold calling, like, cold calling is nothing
Yeah.
compared to getting the door slammed in your face. So yeah, all of the experience I had growing up really, like, primed me for getting into real estate, being kind of like this no frills, just like, and it's hard sometimes being a woman in that space, very male
Absolutely.
dominated.
Mhm.
But yeah, it would, take no crap from anybody.
Yeah, and I think that's how you have to be. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to step out there. So it takes a lot
Yeah,
of courage to go door to door, face to face. Yeah, it's easy where to call someone, all they do is hang up the phone and then you're just right, fine, right? But when
yeah,
someone's in your face, get off my property. No, I don't want to talk to you. Why are you here? Get out of here. Could be dangerous at some point, right? So you don't know exactly what you're going to encounter going face to face. So it takes a lot of courage. So doing that initially, then going to cold calling was probably nothing. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's fantastic. And yeah, by the sounds of it, going through challenges in life that you go through built a lot of character. And,
Yes,
you have obviously a strong internal drive in yourself that you were not going to quit until you started to succeed. Right. So
that's right.
beyond the commercial property, you started wholesaling and flipping that, started building up some experience. And I love the fact you've got a land investing company now.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, let's first kind of dive into that. I know you kind of broke down what you do. How long have you been doing that? How wide of a band and area are you doing land deals in? And kind of for people that would be interested in reaching out to you later, kind of lay that out.
Sure, yeah. So the land kind of came to me during COVID because it got hard to meet with sellers and to just get deals done. And I realized that with land, I could basically do the whole deal from my computer. So I started scaling that probably 3 years ago. Was it 3 years? COVID, we're now year
We're back.
three in COVID. Yeah. So, or before. So yeah, I started, and I was just wholesaling at that point because I still didn't have very much money, didn't have credit. And I had a couple guys around me that asked me, like, hey, do you want me to invest with you? And I didn't want to take anyone's money at the time because I was like, no, I'm still really figuring this out. Like, I'd rather play with house money and get like a good solid model before I take on that kind of responsibility. So I had just been wholesaling and finding deals for investors. And then yeah, I saved enough cash to be like, okay, I think we need to start, working and getting bigger deals. So I hired, well, I did hire, but well, yeah, I guess I went through Greg's mentorship program and started being more serious and more intentional about uh, buying and doing my own deals. So it's been about 2 years now with that experience of taking my own deals and taking it to the entitlement process, or even just finding a really good deal and then putting it back on the market. Since we do quite a bit of lead generation, we end up having a lot of extra deals, and I just cherry pick, honestly. But yeah, I'm right now working mostly in Texas. But that doesn't mean that I can't, if I have an investor who's very specific, like this, we need, 5 to 10 acres that is zoned that's in this area. I am more than happy to do marketing and reverse engineer that, in any market. Honestly, it's not hard for me to do that. So for my own personal investing portfolio, I prefer Texas just because it's what I know. But if investors do have something and they're working in other markets, definitely able to go into those markets and find what they're looking for.
Perfect. That's awesome. Okay, so quickly want to go back on a couple things. So one, great to hear from someone that when you're doing deals and you're building up initially and you have people come to you, offer money and investment, a lot of people just take that, right? That's an easy path. Somebody else's money, you risk it. It's not your money. You having the internal thought process and having that character that you don't want to risk someone else's money. You want to risk your own money initially, build your own path first, make sure you professionalize what you're doing, make sure you get a solid process, understanding that you want to take care of an investor money and capital, and you don't want to risk theirs until you have good systems in place. That's great and speaks to your character. So congrats on that. Next thing that you brought up was Greg Dickerson. So we are both in Greg Dickerson's mastermind group. So Greg Dickerson is a serial entrepreneur, great guy, has an entrepreneurial mastermind group. If you haven't heard of Greg Dickerson, look him up. He's a fantastic guy. I did an episode with him early on with the podcast. So definitely check that out. He is a great person and great for anyone looking to get into development. Now, beyond that, when we're talking land deals, so there are a lot of people out there that do land acquisition deals, land wholesaling. Typically, that is this rural property in the middle of nowhere for people to use for maybe bringing an RV or hunting or whatever, right? So that's not what we're talking about here. You're talking about land deals for development, entitlement plays, subdividing. This is a whole lot more complex. This is a whole lot more valuable. And this is not just throwing out letters all across the country and taking in responses. You are identifying areas specifically and cherry picking areas and lots specifically. That's the major difference in what you're doing from the general population of land purchasers, land buyers, land flippers, right? So I want that to be understood. It's very niche. So, and I know you're just kind of running over that. So I want to get a little deeper into that. So tell me specifically what differentiates you and how you started to learn entitlement plays.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I started to learn just based upon working, and I was that investor that would send out all the letters and just we casted a super wide net. And you kind of have to do that in the beginning to kind of figure out where you fit in, and excuse me. And by wholesaling land, it kind of, I saw that a lot of investors, what they were doing, what the I try to have conversations with everybody that I work with, and I'd ask them like, well, why are you doing that, and what are your returns on that, and why do you prefer doing the entitlement over doing the whole thing, or and so I just kind of started communicating with a lot of the people I was working with and figuring out like what was their reasonings behind their investments. And I saw like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense for me. Like that seems like a little sweet spot to find, and I found the counties that were really good because just asking really good questions on, to my investors and finding out like what was their perimeters. And then I kind of just copied. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, well, if it's working for them and they're finding really good results, maybe I should try that. And to me, it was a great way for me to get in and out of properties a little bit faster than going through and developing a whole subdivision with, houses and amenities. Like that seemed a little bit overwhelming and just not what I was interested in. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I fell onto my lap.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So, there's stages in this, right? So when you're finding, if you have the ability to find good pieces of property, right, that have utilities available very close, and you're in the right section where there's growth happening, and you can find
Yes.
that parcel, you can make it's a stepped process. So there's different steps on where you make money, and you can clear out and make a good profit. So you can buy the property, you can subdivide it and make some money. You can buy the property and go through the county review process, get approvals, and entitle the property, maybe subdivide it into 8 parcels, have a road approved through it, and it is ready to go. Then you can sell that off to a builder or developer, and all of a sudden you can quadruple the property value on the land. So
Right.
that's what we're talking about, where Heather's saying, yeah, I was watching some of these people and they're making big money. That's a vast difference from just taking a piece of property that's a piece of raw land, flipping it to someone, doing owner finance and financing it and making small payments of, $400 a month. Starting out, that's great. Once you build that up, if you want to start to scale and make big money, this is a way to make big money with land deals. I love land as a builder, right? So I love identifying good pieces of property, finding those. And there's not a lot of people that understand that. You look at land planning, you can look at the zoning, maybe they're rezoning a certain area in a county, and you identify that area then and go start zoning in on that one portion of the area. And you have to know the area, like you're saying, Heather. So it's important when you're doing this, it's not just throwing out that broad net. This is specialized understanding of the area, but you can add a whole lot of value to that property and make a whole lot of money just entitling it. And you're making money, but even when you're selling that entitled property, the developer still has a big upside. This is like a clearinghouse. So you might buy the piece of land for 400, you entitle it, all of a sudden that piece of land is worth 1.4 million, 1.8 million, right? But the developer taking that down, he's taking it on a per pad basis, how he's analyzing it for his development criteria. Then he's doing it, the flat work, the finished lots. Then he can take the finished lots and sell them to a builder, or he can take the finished lots and work with individual builders and sell them on a pad piece or develop it himself. Either way, he has a further upside going, and then the builders have the upside of taking down the property, and then they build the house and then they sell again. So there's the 3 tiers. You're at tier
Yes.
1, which is the quickest turn, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of knowledge to get through that. So I just wanted to kind of go through those steps because you're just highlighting it quickly, but these are
Yes.
critical steps, and you are helping developers a lot. Right now, there's low inventory with everything. So we need people like you, and there's a strong demand in the marketplace for someone to do that. So I just kind of wanted to bring that through, and what you're doing is awesome. It's complicated too. So
Yeah.
what were some of the challenges that you saw initially that you overcame, or what was a big challenge you
Yes.
ran into that was a great learning experience for you?
Yeah. I think that the biggest challenge is like going through when it's your first deal um and going into a new market. It's like if you don't have a pulse, if you're not working with, you should be calling your local land agents that are like specifically, I like them to be specifically focused on land,
Mhm.
and have extensive knowledge of that market. And I think I didn't really see the value of that in the beginning. And so I hadn't talked to a land agent, and land consultants that work in that area, civil engineers,
Mhm.
and surveyors. I thought, well, I could just get a survey done and draw some little lines. Like maybe just draw some little lines on a paper. Like I think that's what they do.
All
You
right,
know,
right.
it's just like and yeah, I think that just that due diligence process, you just get excited of like, oh, I got a deal. And I've seen a YouTube of people doing this and like makes a lot of money. So maybe I just draw some lines and add value. So
Right.
yeah, just that.
There's a
Sorry, go
lot
ahead.
of trial and error to speak to what you're saying, and that those are great points you brought up. So when you're going in an area like that, you are making all the right contacts. So those are the people that you need to reach out to. So the civil engineers, land consultants, there's land planners basically that are work and they have connections with the city council members.
Yes.
They know what's going to get through or not. So if you find the right people, and these are specific people, so it takes time. And
Yes.
Heather's obviously working through these markets and understanding it takes time. You get a civil engineer, but you have to know that land planner that has a connection with the city council. And
Yes.
that if you know the right land planner, they'll say, this is going to get through or this is not going to get through. It saves you a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy, right? So there's a lot of little nuances that you need to know. And this comes through trial and error. And so, Heather, you've done obviously a lot of initial work and groundwork to get that knowledge. The land agents that you were speaking about are great because they have the contacts of all the builders that are looking for land,
Yeah.
right? And so you're reaching out to them. What's the demand? What's everyone looking for, right? And that
Right.
helps you narrow your search. So you're obviously doing a lot of homework. So that's fantastic. So let's kind of walk through. So now you've started into all this. Have you hit any big home run deals or great deals that you could kind of walk us through a deal?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I last year, small 6 acres, which sometimes I like to go from any minimum 5 to 50 acres. And I like this specific county because it's kind of like the Wild West, and you
Mhm.
have very little requirement. There's no restrictions. It's close to Austin. It's my little honey hole. And so 6 acres, wasn't something I was like, oh wow, like I'm gonna make a killing on this. But the seller needed the money fast. And so in some areas and in some deals, it's like you either negotiate the terms or the price. And for this specific one, we got the price that we wanted. She got the terms that she wanted because she needed cash fast. And so, I purchased the property with a lot of equity, and I wasn't for sure if I could subdivide it. But I knew that if I put it back on the market tomorrow, it would sell and I'd still make a really good profit. So with that, we got that one. And, last year was really tough in the market. And I was kind of like very hesitant to buy anything, and I was just like, okay, I really hope this works out because I don't know if it's going to sell. I don't know how long we're going to have to hold on to it. But in this specific market, there was a demand for properties, land specifically where you could put like a mobile home or trailer. And I do like the bigger tracks, but this one was like, okay, well, this is not so, I'm not, this isn't like all of my cash. So I was willing to take the deal. And yeah, we ended up 5xing our profits on that. We just subdivided it into 1 acre lots, and then we sold the lots individually, which is selling it to a retail consumer. Each lot was extremely profitable. And so we were in that deal for 100 grand, and I ended up selling it for 600,000 in 4 months.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's a fantastic deal. So 6 acres subdivided into 6 1 acre parcels, sold each one for 100 grand. That's a great return on your money,
Yeah.
and all that within 4 months.
4
So
months. Yeah. The
wow. So
The
that was
entitlement took
a
3 months.
risk worth taking, and that's pretty
Yeah.
inexpensive. 100,000 for 6 acres. Whoa, that's about 18,000, 17,000 an acre. That is really a good deal. And so when we look at that, how were you, what type of a issue was the seller in that they were willing to take such a low price? Was it inherited, or how did you come upon it?
Yeah, we do a ton of lead generation, and the seller, usually our best deals come from the sellers who already have a price in mind. And we always try to ask them for their price before we give our price. And, that's like number one key in negotiation. You got to say your price first, or they got
Mhm.
to say their price
Oh, yeah.
first.
Yep.
So she just had a price in mind, and she hadn't really tell us what was the issue of why she needed to sell, but she was like, I need 100,000 and like I need it fast. And so we were like, okay, we can deliver that. So we ended up
Wow.
closing in like, 10 days and got it under contract, and was just like, I was so excited about it. I was just like sped through all of the due diligence. It's just like, yes, this is it. We're taking it. And which is kind of a risky thing, but like I said, I knew that if I did nothing to it and I had just sold it as is, I could sell it for 200, 250 in that market. So yeah, it was it was just, it's just a matter of like, when we're finding our deals, it really is a numbers game, and continuing to nurture those leads and follow up. I have a team of virtual assistants, and they do the follow up, they do the lead generation and marketing, and they go through and score the property based upon, like all these checklists that we've put into place. And they will, score it. And if it scores really high in the sense of like it's prime for what I'm trying to do, it's at a good price, it's got all of these maybe utilities, it's got good road frontage, then they'll ping me and say, hey, we got a deal, you may want to take a look. So that's pretty much what I'm doing mostly now, is just looking at the really good cherries.
That's awesome. So to go back on one thing, there's a book by Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, to go
Yeah.
back to what you said. Yeah, you never want to be the first one that throws the price out. Whoever throws the price out first always is normally the loser. So I fight all day long trying to not try. Now, sometimes you have to, somebody has to throw out a price. So I end up throwing out a price, but you try and always wait and let somebody else give you the price. But that Chris Voss wrote, and it's a great book, Never Split the Difference. So as far as your virtual assistants, now that was a great deal. The virtual assistants, did you train and write up the criteria for the virtual assistants, or where did you come about giving them a training package? And where are your virtual assistants located? Are they in the Philippines, or where specifically?
Yeah, so we built out full like systems for them to follow.
Hmm.
Virtual assistants, I get virtual assistants from South America and from the Philippines, because we do a lot of deals in South Texas. It's close to the border of Mexico. So we have a lot of Spanish speaking sellers.
Hmm.
So we have people from South America and the Philippines. And so yeah, the training process was, basically just built out by myself and my operations manager. And my operations manager, she's no longer with me now, but she's a civil engineer. And so
Oh, nice.
she had a very detailed due diligence process, and she pretty much put that together when she was with me. I had to let her go last year because the market was just very uncertain, and I had to just scale back a little bit.
Mhm.
And now I'm at the point again where I'm like, okay, I think we can turn this thing back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and that is fantastic thinking, having a civil engineer for your ops manager, because they
Yeah.
are the ones that are all the knowledge. So when you're going through entitlement, a lot of times you're just handing mainly everything to a civil engineering firm, once you know it can get through, but they're the ones that are going to lay out the plot, tell you if you can subdivide it, tell you how many lots you can fit in a subdivision. They're the ones that are going to, are trained and understand how to do that. So having someone like that on your team that can then write up and is the type of person, when we look at Culture Index or some of these cognitive people, they're the type of person that are great at organizing systems. What a
Yes.
win that is. So that
All
sounds like a
right.
fantastic hire. It's a shame
Yeah.
that, the market has been down. So you're smart not to have bought a lot of stuff last year. That was a kind of a terrible year, but yeah, things are starting to come around now. But I love that you put everything together, built up the system yourself. There's a lot of people that just farm that out, but having the understanding and knowledge that you've put that into yourself speaks volumes and speaks a lot to, you are the type of entrepreneur that does things, understands them, and doesn't just hand them off. You're actually getting in, understanding things, getting involved in the process. That'll bring me to my next portion of your entrepreneurial journey with your husband. You and your husband have started a health supplements company. So
Yes.
the name of the health supplements company is, let me get back here, Fasted Athlete. So tell us a bit about Fasted Athlete, please.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking. So my husband started Fast Athlete 2 years ago, and I came in as his primary investor, which also put me on like the board of advisors. And the supplement is for energy. It's a daily energy supplement that you would take every day in the morning with your coffee. And we call it Fasted Athlete because we are trying to educate people on the benefits of intermittent fasting. And with the supplement, it isn't necessarily a fasting supplement, but it does help to kind of extend your fast and just give you energy. Because I don't know if you've ever fasted before. Sometimes you feel in the beginning, you feel a little low energy. So that just kind of helps, continue longer, you're keeping your fast. And the supplement is lion's mane mushroom, which is a functional mushroom that has been proven to be very good for brain health. It's a nootropic. So that's good for your focus. Slow release caffeine. Everybody knows and loves caffeine, but this caffeine is slow release, and it's not a ton of caffeine. So if you take 1 or 2 capsules with your coffee, it just kind of like extends the benefits of your coffee. And it's very light, subtle energy throughout the day. And then creatine, which has also been a very well-studied ingredient for building muscle and also for brain health. Creatine, I think, is, one of the most underrated products out there, but also like very, very well studied. So, and then we're launching a second product coming in 2 weeks. So stay tuned with that. It's going to be for your gut health, which the guts like stems from everything, like if your mood, your hair, skin, nails, your energy. So when you get that gut, operating properly, then, everything else just starts to get better.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people don't understand, with gut health is, you agitate your gut and it gets inflamed and
Yes.
until you really clear out, you do an intermittent fast or something
Yeah.
to really transition out of that, that thing stays inflamed and you continually have gut issues. And that speaks, yeah, you guys have done a lot of research. That's amazing. Lion's mane's fantastic. So there's me as someone that has ADD really bad. So those are
Oh,
things that for, someone with ADD, if you're trying to get more natural stuff instead of the typical ADD drugs,
yeah.
then the lion's mane is fantastic for focus for people with ADD. Obviously, you need caffeine when you have ADD, which is why they have speed in the medicine for ADD. So those two go in line with that. The creatine, obviously, so could you tell me a bit more about that? So that's great for someone trying to build muscles. And so these all go together. So
Yes.
how does that align and what are your guys' guidance as far as fasting with this? How
Yes.
how much does someone who hasn't done fasting, how much should they fast initially? And do you guys put a plan together that you have that someone could follow once taking your product?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tony. I think that a lot of people start off fasting, they get excited about it, and a lot of things actually, like they get a new diet or they get a new workout regimen, and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to go all in, full throttle, fast for 48 hours, go to the gym for 2 hours straight, deadlift 700 million pounds. And then they do that for 2 days and they're like, I will never do that again. I hate this. This is not for me. I don't understand why people do that. And it's just not sustainable, you know? So if it's your first time fasting, working out, changing your diet, try to just start small. So we recommend for your fasting state to go 12 hours at first. And then every day or every other day, extend that fasting window an hour every time. And ultimately you want to get to, 16, 18 hours. That would be your, perfect little intermittent fasting window. And of course, for men, I think that fasting especially is really good for men. For women, we have to be a little bit more careful on when we fast with our cycles, and we definitely want to make sure that we are aligning our fasting time with our follicular phase of our cycle. And you may want to do more research on that, and everybody is going to have a little bit of a different time that works best for them. But ultimately you want to try to get to 16 to 18 hours of fasting. So basically just skipping breakfast. And I think that if you start with 12 hours and just work your way up slowly over 2 months, it can be very sustainable, and you'll notice an increase in your energy, and you'll start turning on your fat burning machine, because we all have that, and our bodies are designed to pull that stored fat for energy. So that's the key, I think, for a lot of people who are looking to get into shape and feel stronger and healthy, and working out is great, and you definitely want to implement that. But it really is just eating less. That's the biggest thing. It's 80% of your diet.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of it is definitely with any diet, everyone, it's not so much the working out, right? It's all diet. And so I love the idea of this. So now when you're talking, getting to 16, 18 hours, are you saying continually day in, day out, you should try and do this fasting, or you fast 1 or 2 days a week? Just to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that everybody is going to respond differently. And everybody, if it were, I'm going to say for males specifically, I think for males, you can do it every day and have really great results. And so if you can, just push out your breakfast an hour every day till you get to that, intermittent fasting, like 16 to 18 hours. I think that that's a really good thing for men. Now, speaking for women, we're, with our hormones and everything, that's a little bit different. So,
Right.
So yeah, for men though, I think that you definitely, every man should be fasting, intermittent
Yeah.
fasting.
That's awesome. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so with this on the product that you have right now that has the lion's mane, the caffeine, the creatine, is it that you
Yeah.
take 2 in the morning and that's it? And the extended release capsules get you basically with the caffeine the majority of the day, or are you taking the supplement in the morning and in the afternoon? How does that work?
Yeah, so you would take 2 or 1, depending on your caffeine tolerance. It's not a lot of caffeine. It's like 30 milligrams per capsule. And,
Oh, yeah.
your normal cup of coffee is like 180. So
Yeah.
it's really not a lot. So you would take 2 capsules with your coffee or tea or water in the morning. And yeah, you'll feel that slow release kind of trickle throughout the day. We actually have had a lot of reviews on people who have been taking Adderall or Vyvanse or those medications, and they've gotten off of those and are now just taking our supplement. So that is, it does tell you something, but it's not a type of caffeine that's going to keep you up all night. So probably about, after dinner, you're already done for the day because you just crushed your day on this supplement. You're just powering through, and then by the end of the night you're ready to go to bed, so it's not going to keep you up or anything like that.
That's awesome. Well, good luck on the second portion of your rollout with the gut health. I'm interested to see that, and I will keep up. Something else I want to mention, if you go to her website, and it's what's the web address?
fastedathlete.com.
fastedathlete.com. If you go on the website, they have the option you can download an ebook that they have on there, which will help guide you through the process and using it. It's a great supplement, something that looks like I'm going to have to give a try. I've downloaded the ebook. I haven't read it, but I'm going to read it. And a little more research. It looks awesome. I love lion's mane. So I think you guys got a home run here. I'm excited to see if it works for me. But get me all ripped up and shredded.
Yeah.
Get me going, and we'll see what happens. Well, Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. If someone wants to reach out to you for land entitlement plays in Texas or in the surrounding area, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tony, for having me. This has been great. You can find me if you are specifically looking for land deals all over the US, I could find what you're looking for. My website for that is wholesalelanddirect.com. And then if you just want to reach out, have a question about anything, you can find me pretty easily on Facebook at Heather Young.
Awesome. Heather, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and wish you nothing but success in your future. Thanks so much. Hopefully we can chat again soon.
Totally. All right. See ya.
Have a great day.
Peace.